Good morning and welcome to Morning Moments. I am so glad that you came to join us today. Today we have a special guest from Louisiana. We've had some technical problems getting them on, and so I'm glad we're finally got to a place where we could record this interview. This gentleman is a award-winning uh, recording artist, been in singing for over 30 years. He's got a fantastic story that he has to share. He's with Greg Sullivan Ministries, and it happens to be Greg Sullivan, who I'm interviewing today from Louisiana. Greg, welcome to Morning Moments.
Thank you, Andy. It's a joy for me to be here with you this morning. Thanks for having me on.
Well, with everything that went on, one of my favorite sayings is we are all held captive by technology. And
That's
so so sometimes we have to scramble around and look to other resources and things. So I'm glad you were patient with me. Tell us, Greg, about yourself. Tell me, what do you do and why do you do it?
well. I've been going to church. I can remember going to church since I was 5 years old, and at age 15, my mom and dad took me to a Kingsman concert, and they sang for about 3 hours that night, and it was so good. I was just hooked, and I had walked the aisle when I was 12 years old, and had gotten saved, and I started just listening to this music after that. I just fell in love with it, and got married at age 20. And kind of started doing what Greg wanted to do. Mom and Dad I had a drug problem. They drugged me to church, and so which was good. But when I got married, I just kind of started doing things like I wanted to do it, and got out of church a little bit. And at age 28, I got sick. I just got ill, and no doctor could find out what was going on with me. And it went on for about 6 months, and I woke up the last Thursday morning in the month of August, 1994, and I just asked the Lord. I said, God, what's wrong with me? And He said, you know everything about me, but you don't know me. I had a head knowledge, Andy, and there's a lot of folks sitting on church pews today think they're all right, and all they have is a head knowledge of Christ. They don't have a relationship. And that day, I gave my heart and soul to the Lord, and I had served church committees and led music in my church. And when I got to church that Sunday and walked up and told my pastor that I'd got saved on Thursday, he's like, "What?" I said, "Yes." And the Lord allowed me to nail it down, and He allowed me to know that I knew. I know that I know that I know. Okay. And so shortly after that, the Lord called me in evangelistic music, and my wife said, "What is that?" I said, "I don't know yet, but this is what He wants me to do." And it's with music, and formed my first group with some friends of mine that lasted for about 10 years, and sang with some other different groups. And the last group I was with was Chronicle, and we started that in 2009. And in 2016, we lost our home in the Louisiana flood. Our daughter was in the midst of a drug addiction that almost took her life. My father-in-law was in ill health, where my wife and her siblings were having to take care of him. We have an autistic son that lives with us. So we had a lot going on in our. Plus, I was getting on the bus every weekend traveling. So my wife came to me and she said, "I can't do this anymore." She said, "I need you at home." "What are you talking about?" "I need to quit." And I said, "Quit?" I said, "I've been doing this most of my life." I said, so I prayed to the Lord and said, "Lord, what's going on?" He said, "Well, you're out of order." He said, "You didn't mean to be, but circumstances has put you there." He said, "You need to remember something. I didn't call you to sacrifice your family on the altar of ministry." Well, I had to, went back to my wife. She was at her dad's staying that night. I went back over there, and when I walked in, she said, "Look, if you feel like you need to continue doing this, Brett and I'll just move on." And I was like, "Wait a minute, time out. I don't have to be a gospel singer to know that God don't want that." And the next day I went and talked to Tim and Missy, and I told them, I said, "I can't do this anymore." And we cried like 3 kids. We didn't, but we knew this is what God wanted. And I didn't know if I would sing again, Andy. I didn't really. Lord, I'm going to do what you tell me to do. I'm going to follow what you tell me to do. I'm going home. I'm going to take my place as dad and father where I need to be. And we'll just see how all this works out. Well, God delivered our daughter. He restored our home. He solidified my marriage. to the point where in 2018 he called me back into singing, and I was like, "Hey, I'm getting back on the bus." And nope, he said, "I want you to sing solo." And Andy, the first thing I told him was, "Lord, I can't do that," because I'd been with groups all my life. I'd never been on stage by myself, and I just, how many times when God gives us something, the first thing we say, "Well, Lord, I can't do that." Well, got to remember that He doesn't call the equipped; He equips the called. And so I started singing as a soloist, and in 2019, my wife come to me and said, "I need to get in the car with you as much as I can. I know we can't go all the time. Brett's difficult, but," she said, "I can go and travel with you as much as I can." She said, "We have a story to tell other folks that what God did for us, He'll do for them." And Andy, God has opened up so many doors, and I'm thankful for the charting success. I'm thankful for the awards. Those are God's favor, and I appreciate that. But nothing compares to being able to sit down with a husband and wife whose daughter is going through what our daughter went through, and be able to give them hope that what God did for us, that He'll do for them. And we've had so many opportunities to do that. And that's where ministry is at. The music's great, everything that goes along with it's fantastic. But the ministry and be able to help others is why I do what I do.
Uh, Greg, I had no idea where this interview was going to go when I first invited you here. I just felt like, hey, let's get Greg on. I think it's a good idea. He seems like a good guy. When you were telling your story, I was sharing with you the parallel of our story as well. And many of you know that I was a pastor and went from pastoring to a registered nurse, and now I'm retired. But the details behind that is that at one point, the second church we pastored, my wife came to me and basically said the same thing. She
Yeah. Well,
said, either you choose ministry or marriage, but I'm taking the kids and I'm going home. And I left that, left ministry, full-time ministry, for the sake of our marriage. And she was right. We were beaten up and broken. We would have lost the marriage. This year we'll be married 46 years.
wow, congrats.
And
36.
And in the meantime, I had another career after that, in nearly 30 years as a registered nurse, to
Wow.
God to bring me back to this position where I'm now sharing the gospel through the wonders of media.
There you go.
Some of you are listening to this and saying, but I'm ministering for God. I'm singing, I'm pastoring, I'm doing great things, but your house is not in order.
Right.
And you may have to say, I heard this today, and me and my wife have got to sit down and have a talk about our relationship.
Right.
And it may not be just ministry, it may not be singing and pastoring. Some of you are listening to this and say, our marriage is shot, and we need to sit down and stop what we're doing and get things corrected. You need to go to some counseling. You need to go to some marriage seminars. You need to go to get into the Word of God. You need to hear from people and let people speak into your life. Your marriage is worth saving, folks.
Yes. Andy, I had an opportunity sang at a church just north of my home, and they had a little fellowship afterwards, and we got done in there, and I went in the sanctuary to tear my equipment down. It was just, I was in there by myself, and this gentleman walks in, a younger guy, and tears are just rolling down his face. And he comes up, he says, "Brother Greg," he said, "will you pray with me?" He said, "Your story inspired me to the point where I know that my marriage, I need to treat my wife better. I need to do things better as a husband, as a father." And he said, "Would you pray with me? And so God will help me with that." And I was like, wow, this is what this is about, helping others, getting ourselves lined up with God so that we can help others. And, when we do that, Andy, it's not always easy. Sometimes it's very painful. Look, I love traveling with groups. I love getting on that motorhome and going every
Sure.
weekend. Really did. I love standing, in front of the crowds and singing harmony, and I love Tim and Missy. We're friends today. We're closer now. That's what I tell people. I left Chronicle. Nobody got in a fist fight. No, there was nobody got upset. We This is what God wanted, and now He's carried them off on a great ministry as a couple, and now He's carried me off on a ministry, and we're working for the same kingdom. We're just going in different directions.
Yeah.
So God took what the devil could have used for harm, because had I been selfish, had I said to my wife, no, this is what I've done most of my life, I've planned for this, I have worked so hard to get to where I am, and either you're going to have to figure it out, or I would have lost my marriage, I would have lost my daughter. I feel like quite certainly she would have died. And now she went back to school, graduated from LSU in 2020, got married in August of 2020. Her and her husband have both gotten good jobs. They got a new home not far from us. They're planning on building out here next to us. They're working on our first grandbaby. I mean, there's a lot of great things that has happened. And I think it's just because of obedience. I didn't do anything special, Andy. I did what I was supposed to do, like you
Right.
did. You didn't do anything special. You did what God required of you, and God expected you to do. Now, He don't force His will on us.
No.
I could have made a decision to go the other direction. You could too, but I always talk about this, and I said, and I ask people when they say, "We just can't believe you walked away from a ministry that was thriving." And I said, let me ask you something. If I'd have stayed with Chronicle and my wife would have left me and I lost my marriage and my daughter would have died and all this would have happened, how long are you going to listen to me? Because it makes no difference how good I sound or how good the group sounds. But if somebody says, well, he forsook his family and everything else to do this, you're going to turn me off.
Yeah.
And that's what I told Tim and Missy. I said, look, if I would have stayed, I would have been like Jonah. Y'all would have had to throw me off the boat because I wasn't where I was supposed to be. And it would have destroyed me, my family, and it would have destroyed my ministry. It would have destroyed the ministry of Chronicle. So, I did what God needed. Yes, He put in front of me, and I was just obedient. And the Bible says obedience is greater than sacrifice. So, I'm very thankful. And look, I try not to think about the way that it could have went, Andy. And I know you, same thing. I try to put that back in my mind to know that, okay, I followed the Lord. I did what he asked me to do. I was obedient, and this is what God has done, and it's all because of Him. It's all because of what God has done.
Some of you that are listening to this today is for you, and some of you that's listening to this, you're going, I need to share this interview with somebody else, and you know who they are. You know who I'm talking about. I want you to pass this interview on. We're down below. You're gonna hear about. You could go online and look up Greg Sullivan's ministries. You could see where he's going to be, where his concerts, and you could get his albums. You could follow his ministry, and I want you to do that. But more important, the message of what this interview is about, I want you to pass that on to somebody else. And after you hear this, let me tell you, the we have to die daily. When surrender is your reasonable service, you could expect great things from God. We have to surrender daily, and with that to happen, we need your prayers. I'd like for you to, when this interview is over, I want you to stop and pray for Greg Sullivan, his ministry, his marriage, his family, and everything that God has for him. Because it's your prayers that's going to help him keep going on. Greg,
Amen.
Thank you for sharing your heart today. With all of the technical problems and having to set up at the last minute what we did, I believe God's going to honor that, and He's going to do great things for this interview. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me on and allowing me to share our story and to give God thanks for all that He's done.
Thank you for joining us for Morning Moments, and pass this message on. And if you would, keep on coming back, and may God richly bless you.